The benefits of speech to text as a writer. Can it help you with your writing? Can it speed things up? Can it hurt you? Is this new feature available to writers a benefit or a hurdle to you becoming a great writer? We're going to be dealing with those questions and more, and we're starting right now. Ask any writer what their problem is with writing. What is the one hurdle that stops them from being great? And an amateur writer will tell you that they just have too many thoughts going through their head at one time. They get an idea for a novel, but then all of a sudden they have so many ideas for that novel that they can't write it down fast enough. They might be writing down the beginning. They have an idea for an ending, and by the time they finish writing the beginning, they've completely forgotten the ending, simply because they cannot write fast enough. If you look at a lot of professional writers, they could write really fast. Their fingers move really quick on the keyboard. But a lot of amateur writers have to write really slow. It takes them a while just to write a sentence because they haven't had enough practice at writing. So how do we fix this problem? How do you deal with a writer who cannot write fast as their mind can go? Because ask any amateur writer, and they will tell you the biggest problem is when you have dialogue. You can hear the dialogue in your head. You can hear the people talking. The problem is that you can't write fast enough to keep up with the pace of the dialogue going through your mind. So as a writer, there is a solution, and it's speech to text. When you're able to say something out loud and what you say appears on the screen, this can speed up things tremendously. There are a lot of amateur writers who love speech to text because when they have dialogue going through their mind, they can just quickly write down everything that's going through their mind. They can say it out loud, and everything that they say appears on the screen. And when they're finished, they can go back and make a few corrections here or there. But the flow of the dialogue sounds real. It sounds natural. Because when you're trying to write dialogue on a typewriter, you find that it doesn't sound natural. That by the time you've finished one sentence and you go to write its next sentence, it sounds fake. But if you're able to do speech to text, you're able to say the dialogue out loud as though it's really happening. So when the thoughts go through your head, you simply say it out loud, and the microphone on your laptop picks it up and writes it down. And when you're finished, you look back and you realize that this dialogue sounds so real, so natural. Someone reads it and they think, wow, this is great dialogue. How did you capture this? And there's a new feature about speech to text that can help you as an amateur writer. Now, we have to ask, is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? Would this have helped other writers in the past who gave up on writing because they couldn't write fast enough? Because ask anyone who's ever sat down at a computer for the first time ever, it takes a long time just to look for the letters on the keyboard. And a lot of times people just give up because they feel as though they can't type fast enough. But speech to text can make a huge difference. Ask any writer, and there's nothing more frustrating than writing a complex scene in which you know you have 2 or 3 more scenes to follow. Those scenes go through your mind quickly. And by the time you're finished one scene, all of a sudden you've completely forgotten those other scenes. You can't recall them. And it's frustrating because you know those scenes would have made your novel amazing. But the problem is you ended up forgetting it. But speech to text can really speed things up. Because while you're writing one scene, if you quickly think of another, you don't have to stop to start writing it out. You can just literally start reciting that new scene out loud. And right there, it appears on your screen. And then you can go back to the scene that you were writing before and finish it off. So that way, if you're writing one scene and you have 2 or 3 ideas that quickly come to you, and you don't want to stop writing that first scene because you don't want to lose the flow, then what you can do is just start saying those new scenes out loud right there. While you're writing, you can just start saying those scenes out loud, and they will appear right there on the screen. So when you do finish that first scene, you can now look back at those other two scenes and say, oh yes, I remember those now. And then you can start writing them in more depth. Now, obviously, when you write speech to text, it's not going to have all the perfect punctuation and grammar. But what you're looking to do is get the skeleton down. When you ask any writer, when they first start out, the part that's most frustrating is they have so many different ideas bouncing around in their head that they don't really know where to start. Well, with speech to text, you can just literally turn on the microphone and just start saying whatever's on your mind. Whatever it is about your story, beginning, middle, end, characters, location, whatever is going through your mind, just say it all out loud. Just get it all out there. You don't have to say it in order. You don't have to have it make sense. No one else is going to see it. You can delete it after you've finished. But what you're doing is you're taking all of those thoughts that are running through your mind and you're saying them all out loud. They appear on the screen, and now you can then stop and then rearrange what it is that you just said into some type of order. Because even though speech to text isn't going to write the novel perfectly, what you want to do is get the skeleton of the novel down right there on screen. So that way you can then stop and then take your time to rearrange what it is that you have said out loud that appeared on the screen and rearrange it into some type of order. And in the process of writing, and when you're trying to rearrange those ideas, if you all of a sudden come up with a new idea, well, right there, just say it out loud and it appears on the screen. And if you want to make changes, just say it out loud right there and it's going to appear on the screen. So when you want to go back and make those changes, it's right there. You can see it, and then you can start expanding and making a short paragraph into a longer chapter. Most writers say that they feel awkward doing speech to text. A lot of them avoid it because they feel embarrassed hearing the sound of their own voice. It's not natural. People think about writing a novel, and it's the sound of the keyboard clicking away. But what they're not used to is the sound of their own voice. But this is something that you can get used to. It might sound awkward at first when you're alone in your place and you want to write a novel and you're speaking out loud. It sounds awkward. But the more you practice, the more you get used to it. And then something magical happens. You realize, wow, this really is helping. Because with all of these ideas running through your head and you're trying to write it down as fast as possible, but your fingers aren't moving fast enough, you just click on the microphone and take everything in your mind and just say it out loud. One word after another, sentence after sentence. And before you know it, everything that was running through your mind that wasn't making sense is right there on screen for you now to take and work into a full novel. It might feel awkward at first, trying to get used to the sound of your own voice. But after a few times, you will find that it does help. And all of a sudden, you just stop worrying or feeling awkward about the sound of your voice. Ask any writer and they will tell you it's all about being in the zone. When a writer first sits down to start writing, they write maybe a word or two, and then they slowly get faster as they start writing. And then all of a sudden, you feel that happen, that magical thing that writers talk about, when you're just writing a mile a minute. You're writing as fast as possible. Thoughts are coming to you. The problem is, like a professional writer, if they have 1,000 thoughts come to them all of a sudden, yeah, they can write it all down quickly. But as an amateur, all of a sudden you're in trouble because you now have 1,000 thoughts going through your head and you're still slowly trying to type one word. But what you can do is with speech to text is click on the microphone and all of a sudden all of those thoughts in your head, just start saying them all out loud as fast as you can, and it appears on the screen. So you don't have to risk forgetting all of these new ideas while you're trying to write one word. No one is saying that speech to text is going to replace novel writing completely to a point where you no longer need a keyboard. Of course, a keyboard will always be needed, but speech to text can really speed things up for you, where you can get all your ideas down right away and then go back and you can take what you have written and form them into a full complex novel. Ask any amateur writer, and they will tell you one thing that they don't like is spelling mistakes. A lot of writers feel that when they write too fast, they make too many spelling mistakes. And then when they go back to try to read what they've written, they can't make sense of it. But with speech to text, the spelling is, for the most part, 99% of the time, correct. So that way, when you go back, you can see everything that you've written that was written by your speech to text. And everything is spelled correctly. So that way, you don't have to analyze what it is that you were trying to figure, what you were trying to say when you were writing with your fingers, making all of those spelling mistakes. Who knows how many writers in the past would have looked at this thing called speech to text and thought, wow, I wish I had that. It would have made my novel writing a whole lot easier and a whole lot faster. The good thing is we now have speech to text today, and it can truly make a difference in your writing if you want to give it a try. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check out my website, where I have a tremendous number of blogs that will help you become the greatest writer you can be, because that's what I want to do. I want to help you become the greatest writer you can be. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check out my next video that I have for you, giving you the greatest tips on how you can create the greatest characters for your novel. In fact, I'm going to leave a link for that video right here, and you can click on it right now and start watching.